The phone rang at 2:17 a.m., cutting through the silence of my cramped apartment like a rusty blade. I'd been staring at the ceiling for hours, counting water stains and wondering how my life had become such a spectacular train wreck. 3 months since the divorce was finalized. 3 months since Sarah walked away with half of everything I'd worked for, including my dignity. "Jason?" The voice was slurred, familiar in the worst possible way. "Jason, you there?" I sat up in bed, instantly alert. "Who is this?" "It's me, man. Tommy Rodriguez." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Tommy Rodriguez, Sarah's cousin, the golden boy who'd made my life hell for the past 5 years. The same Tommy who'd convinced Sarah I wasn't good enough for her, that she deserved better than a paramedic who worked double shifts just to keep up with her spending habits. "What do you want, Tommy?" He laughed, that obnoxious cackle that had haunted my nightmares. "Relax, Jason. Just calling to check on you. Heard you're living in some rat hole apartment now. That true?" I gripped the phone tighter. "It's 3 a.m. "Yeah, well, I'm at this party, right? And Sarah's here? Looking real good, by the way. She's with this new guy, doctor, drives a BMW, owns a house in Millfield. You know, everything you never were." The words hit like physical blows. I'd known Sarah was seeing someone new. Our daughter Chloe had mentioned it during our last awkward dinner, but hearing it from Tommy's smug mouth made it real in a way that hurt. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know how much better off she is without you, how much happier. She was just telling everyone about how relieved she is to be free of your life." I could hear party sounds in the background, laughter, music, the clink of expensive glasses, the life I'd been excluded from, the world that had never wanted me. "You done?" I asked. "Almost. See, the thing is, Jason, we all knew this would happen. Me, Sarah's parents, hell, even your old buddies from the fire station. We all knew you'd drag her down eventually. Good thing she came to her senses before it was too late." That last part hit hardest. My friends from the station, guys I'd trusted, worked alongside, saved lives with, they'd been talking about my marriage behind my back, judging me. Go to hell, Tommy. Already there, buddy. But at least I'm not alone in some crappy apartment crying into my beer. The line went dead. I sat there in the darkness, phone still pressed to my ear, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. Tommy had always been a parasite, feeding off other people's misery. But this was different. This was calculated cruelty, designed to break whatever was left of my spirit. I walked to the kitchen and grabbed a beer from the nearly empty fridge. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of traffic outside and the occasional siren in the distance, the soundtrack of my new life. 42 years old, divorced, living paycheck to paycheck in a place that smelled like old cigarettes and broken dreams. But as I sat there in the dark, something began to shift inside me. The hurt was still there, sharp and raw. But underneath it, something else was growing, something that felt like anger, but colder, more focused. Tommy thought he'd won. They all did. Sarah, her family, maybe even my old friends. They thought Jason Miller was down for the count, that I'd just fade away quietly and let them get on with their better lives. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. My supervisor, Captain Morris, didn't question it. He knew about the divorce, had seen how it was eating me alive. What he didn't know was that I wasn't sick. I was planning. I drove across town to Millfield, the upscale neighborhood where Sarah had moved with her new doctor boyfriend. It didn't take long to find the house, a sprawling colonial with a circular driveway and perfectly manicured lawn. The BMW Tommy had mentioned was parked outside, gleaming in the morning sun like a trophy. Sarah's car was there too, the Honda I'd helped her pick out 2 years ago. Seeing it in that driveway, surrounded by wealth I could never provide, made my stomach twist. But I didn't leave. Instead, I parked across the street and waited. At 8:30, Sarah emerged from the house wearing a silk blouse and designer jeans I'd never seen before. She looked happy, relaxed in a way she hadn't been during the final years of our marriage. Behind her came a tall man with silver hair and confident stride, Dr. Richard Hartwell, according to the medical practice website I'd looked up that morning. They kissed goodbye at her car, a long, intimate kiss that made me want to punch something. Then she drove off, probably heading to her new job at the art gallery. Another upgrade from the retail work she'd done while married to me. I followed her. The gallery was in the trendy downtown district, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. Sarah parked in back and walked in through the employee entrance. I waited until I saw her through the front window, arranging some paintings before I went inside. "Jason?" She looked genuinely shocked to see me. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk." I'm working, and we don't have anything to talk about. The divorce is final, remember? Other people in the gallery were starting to stare. I lowered my voice. It's about Chloe. That got her attention. Our 15-year-old daughter was the one thing we still shared, the one connection that couldn't be legally severed. What about her? She's been asking questions about why we really got divorced, about Tommy's role in all of it. Sarah's face went pale. Tommy didn't have a role in anything. Really? Because she remembers the family dinners where he'd make jokes about my job, my income, my prospects. She remembers you laughing along. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? I stepped closer, keeping my voice low but letting some of the anger show. 15 years, Sarah. 15 years I put up with your family treating me like garbage. Your cousin calling me a loser, your parents acting like you'd married beneath yourself, and you just sat there and let it happen. You're being dramatic. Am I? Because Tommy called me last night. Wanted to make sure I knew how much better off you are without me. Wanted to rub my face in your new life. For a moment, something that might have been guilt flickered across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold indifference I'd grown to know so well. I can't control what Tommy does, but you can control what you do, and what you did was throw away 15 years like it meant nothing. It did mean nothing, Jason. That's what you never understood. We were never right for each other. I settled for you because I was young and stupid, and it took me too long to realize I deserved better. The words hung between us like a slap. Around us, the gallery had gone quiet. Other customers and employees were pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. Better, I repeated. Like Dr. Hartwell? Richard is a good man. He's successful, cultured, ambitious, everything you're not. And Tommy helped you see that, didn't he? Tommy just helped me realize what I already knew, that I was wasting my life with someone who was never going to amount to anything. I nodded slowly, feeling that cold anger crystallize into something harder. Well, thanks for clearing that up. I'll be sure to explain it to Chloe when she asks why Mommy doesn't love Daddy anymore. Don't you dare! Have a nice day, Sarah. Enjoy your better life. I walked out before she could respond, my hands shaking with rage and something else. Anticipation, because now I knew exactly what I was dealing with. Not just a failed marriage, but a conspiracy. Tommy, Sarah, probably her whole family. They'd all been working to push me out, to make me feel small and worthless until I finally gave up. Well, mission accomplished. The old Jason Miller, the one who'd tried so hard to fit into their world, was gone. What was left was something else entirely, something they weren't going to like very much. That evening, I drove to Murphy's Pub, the dive bar where the guys from Station 19 usually gathered after shift. I needed to know what Tommy had meant about my old buddies talking behind my back. I needed to know who I could trust. The place was dimly lit and smelled like beer and fried food. I spotted them immediately. Mike Chen, Dave Williams, and Bobby Martinez, sitting in our usual booth near the back. They'd been my closest friends for years, the guys who'd had my back through every emergency call, every crisis. They looked up as I approached, and I saw something in their eyes that made my stomach drop. Guilt. Pity. The look you give someone who doesn't know they're the joke. Jason, Mike said carefully, didn't expect to see you here. Why not? It's Thursday. We always meet on Thursdays. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Dave cleared his throat. Look, man, maybe you should... Should what? Find new friends? Is that what you were going to say? Bobby shifted in his seat. Come on, Jason, don't make this weird. Weird? I sat down without being invited. What's weird is finding out that my best friends have been discussing my personal life with my ex-wife's family. The three of them exchanged glances. Mike sighed. Tommy called you, didn't he? So you admit it. It's not what you think, Dave said. We ran into him at the grocery store last week. He started asking questions about how you were doing, and you told him I was living in a crappy apartment and drinking too much. We were worried about you, Bobby protested. You've been different since the divorce. Angry all the time, calling in sick, showing up late for shifts. So you decided to share that with the one person guaranteed to use it against me? We didn't know he'd call you, Mike said. We thought he was genuinely concerned. I stared at them. These men I'd trusted with my life, and felt something break inside me. Tommy Rodriguez has never been genuinely concerned about anything except making me miserable, and you fell for it. Jason, come on. Dave reached across the table. We're your friends. I stood up. No, you're not. Friends don't gossip about each other with people who want to hurt them. Friends don't sit around analyzing each other's failures over beer. That's not fair, Bobby said. We've been there for you through everything. Have you? Because it sounds like you've been there for each other, talking about poor Jason and his problems, making yourselves feel better by comparing your marriages to mine. You're being paranoid, Mike said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Then tell me this. When Tommy asked about me, did any of you defend me? Did any of you tell him to mind his own business? The silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. I pulled out my wallet and threw a 20 on the table. Drinks are on me. Consider it a farewell gift. I walked out of Murphy's knowing I'd burned another bridge, but not caring. They'd made their choice when they chose to gossip with Tommy instead of standing up for their friend. Now they could live with the consequences. Outside in the parking lot, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard you made a scene at Sarah's work today. Real classy, loser. T. Tommy. Somehow he'd already heard about my visit to the gallery, which meant Sarah had called him immediately after I left, probably crying about how her crazy ex-husband was harassing her. I typed back, "Just getting started." His response came quickly. "Bring it on. You've got nothing left to lose anyway." He was wrong about that. I had plenty left to lose, my job, my relationship with Chloe, what little dignity I had remaining, but I also had something Tommy didn't expect. Nothing left to fear. When you've hit rock bottom, the only direction left is up, or in Tommy's case, down. 2 weeks later, I put my plan into motion. I'd spent the time gathering information, learning about Tommy's life, his weaknesses, his pressure points. It turned out the golden boy wasn't quite as golden as he pretended to be. Tommy worked as a sales manager at a high-end car dealership, the kind of place that catered to wealthy clients who valued image over substance. He was good at his job, charming, persuasive, willing to say whatever people wanted to hear. But he also had a gambling problem and a cocaine habit that he thought nobody knew about. I knew about it because I'd followed him, watched him place bets at underground poker games, seen him snorting lines in bathroom stalls at upscale clubs. Tommy Rodriguez, the man who'd spent years telling Sarah she deserved better than a working-class paramedic, was a degenerate gambler with a drug problem. The irony was delicious. I also knew about his debts, serious money owed to serious people who didn't accept excuses. Tommy was in trouble, the kind that could get him hurt or worse. All I had to do was make sure the right people found out about his financial situation. But first, I wanted to look him in the eye. I waited for him in the parking lot of Platinum Motors on a Friday evening, knowing he'd be the last to leave. Tommy always stayed late on Fridays, trying to close deals before the weekend. When he finally emerged from the building, he looked tired and stressed, not the confident predator who'd called me at 3 a.m. "Hello, Tommy." He spun around, startled. When he saw me, his face went through several emotions, surprise, fear, then forced bravado. "Jason, what are you doing here?" "Thought we should have a conversation, face-to-face this time." "I don't have anything to say to you." "That's funny, because you had plenty to say 2 weeks ago, on the phone, remember?" Tommy glanced around the empty parking lot, probably looking for security cameras or witnesses. The lot was well lit, but deserted. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. "Look, if this is about that call, I might have been a little drunk." "A little drunk? You called me at 3 in the morning to tell me how worthless I am, how happy Sarah is without me, how even my friends think I'm a loser." "I was just what? Just being honest? Just putting me in my place?" Tommy straightened up, some of his old arrogance returning. "Maybe I was. Maybe somebody needed to tell you the truth." "The truth?" I stepped closer. "You want to talk about truth? Let's talk about your gambling debts. Let's talk about the cocaine you buy from Danny Morales every Tuesday night. Let's talk about the 20 grand you owe to some very unfriendly people." The color drained from Tommy's face. "How do you know about that? I'm a paramedic, Tommy. I see everything in this city. I know which dealers work which corners, which bookies collect which debts. I know exactly how deep in the hole you are. You can't prove anything. Can't I?" I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo, Tommy handing money to a known bookie outside a downtown restaurant. Digital cameras are everywhere these days. Amazing what you can capture if you know where to look. Tommy's hands were shaking now. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something. You think you're better than me because you wear expensive suits and drive a fancy car. But underneath all that, you're just another addict living beyond his means, one bad bet away from getting his legs broken. You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? Because I also know about the money you've been skimming from the dealership. Little bits here and there, nothing too obvious. But it adds up, doesn't it? Especially when you're desperate to pay off debts." Tommy's face went white. That's not... True, we both know it is. The question is, what happens when your boss finds out? When the police find out? When your gambling buddies find out you've been stealing to pay other debts? You bastard. Tommy's voice was barely a whisper. You can't do this. I'm not doing anything, Tommy. You did this to yourself. I'm just connecting the dots. What do you want? He asked again, defeated. I want you to call Sarah. Right now. I want you to tell her that you lied about me, that you've been filling her head with poison for years because you're jealous of what we had. I can't do that. Then I guess your boss will be very interested in those financial discrepancies, and I'm sure the people you owe money to would love to know about your little embezzlement scheme. Tommy stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact instant when he realized he was beaten. The golden boy, the one who'd always had everything handed to him, was finally facing consequences for his actions. You're not the man I thought you were, he said quietly. No, I agreed. I'm not. The man you thought I was would have taken your abuse and crawled away to lick his wounds. But that man is gone, Tommy. You eliminated him with that phone call. What's left is someone who has nothing to lose and a very long memory. Tommy pulled out his phone with trembling hands and dialed Sarah's number. Sarah, it's me. We need to talk about Jason. The call to Sarah was just the beginning. Over the next week, I watched Tommy's carefully constructed life unravel with surgical precision. I didn't have to do much, just make sure the right information reached the right people at the right time. His boss at the dealership received an anonymous tip about financial irregularities. The people he owed money to learned about his embezzlement through their own channels. His cocaine dealer discovered that Tommy had been bragging about his drug use to impress clients. By Friday, Tommy Rodriguez was unemployed, under investigation, and in hiding from some very dangerous people. The golden boy had fallen, and he'd fallen hard. But I wasn't done yet. Sarah called me on Saturday morning, her voice shaking with rage. What did you do to Tommy? I didn't do anything to Tommy. I just stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own actions. He's in the hospital, Jason. Someone broke his ribs and his nose. He's terrified to go home. That's unfortunate, but what does it have to do with me? Don't play dumb. He told me what you said, what you threatened him with. I didn't threaten him with anything. I just pointed out that his lifestyle was unsustainable. Apparently, other people reached the same conclusion. You destroyed his life. No, Sarah, he destroyed his own life. I just made sure people knew about it, the same way he made sure people knew about mine. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Sarah spoke again, her voice was different, smaller, uncertain. He said he lied about some things. About you. Did he? What kinds of things? About the things he told me during the marriage. About your friends saying you were a loser. About you never amounting to anything. And what do you think about that? Another silence. I think maybe I made some mistakes. Maybe? Jason, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. Tommy convinced me that you were holding me back, that I deserved better. But seeing what he's capable of, the lies he's willing to tell... You're sorry, I repeated. After 15 years of marriage and 3 years of divorce proceedings, you're sorry. I know I hurt you. I know I can't take that back. But maybe we could try to... To what? Get back together? Pretend the last 3 years never happened? I don't know. Maybe we could start over. Try to rebuild what we had. I almost laughed. After everything she'd put me through, after the humiliation and the financial ruin and the loss of my friends, she thought she could just apologize and everything would go back to normal. Sarah, do you know what I've learned over the past few weeks? What? I've learned that I'm not the man I used to be. The old Jason would have jumped at the chance to get you back. He would have forgiven you anything, put up with any amount of abuse just to avoid being alone. And the new Jason? The new Jason knows his worth, and his worth is a hell of a lot more than someone who spent 3 years treating him like garbage. Jason, please. I'm not angry anymore, Sarah. I'm not hurt. I'm just done. You made your choice when you listened to Tommy instead of trusting your husband. You made your choice when you threw away 15 years like it meant nothing. But Tommy lied. Tommy told you what you wanted to hear. That's different. If you'd really believed in us, in me, his lies wouldn't have mattered. But you didn't believe in us. You believed in him. I made a mistake. Yes, you did. And now you have to live with it. I hung up before she could respond. Outside my apartment window, the city stretched out under a gray sky, full of possibilities I'd never allowed myself to consider. For the first time in years, I felt free. My phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. Dad, Mom told me what happened with Uncle Tommy. Are you okay? I typed back, I'm better than okay, sweetheart. I'm exactly where I need to be. And for the first time in 3 years, that was absolutely true. Tommy Rodriguez had called me at 3 a.m. to destroy what was left of my spirit. Instead, he'd awakened something in me that I didn't know existed, the knowledge that I was worth more than their opinion of me. The old Jason Miller was gone. The man who'd replaced him was someone they'd never seen before, someone who wouldn't be pushed around or talked down to or made to feel small, someone who knew how to fight back. And that, I realized with grim satisfaction, was the best revenge of all.